I know why you clicked on this video. I know. You think I don't know why, but I know you. I know you don't like to spend a lot of money on fragrances. You want to get them for the low. You want to ball on a budget. I see you, and I have what you're looking for. Kind of. This title pretty much explains what we're doing today. I've chosen 5 very well-known fragrances, and I've chosen 5 alternatives that smell like them and are more affordable. Now, these fragrances will share a close likeness to their counterparts. They're not just meant to serve the same function. I've done something like that in the past. These fragrances actually occupy the same space as far as scent profile. However, they're not clones, and they're not necessarily cheap, but as I said, they are definitely more affordable. These are high quality, thoughtfully composed fragrances from reputable perfume houses and perfumers. We're not talking about just straight up cheapies today. Now, the popular fragrances that we're replacing are not ones I would consider to be overhyped, but again, they are fairly well known, and some of them I actively wear and enjoy. Now, I will be honest and tell you that of the 5 popular fragrances we're talking about, I only own one of them in full bottle form. The other 4, I have samples of, and I've spent time with those samples. But I do have bottles of all 5 alternatives. So let's dive right into it. The first fragrance that is quite hyped. I wouldn't say it's overly hyped. You probably know what it is. Your mom may not know, but I think you do. Oud Satin Mood from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I remember first smelling it at a Saks in Chicago many years ago. A sales associate introduced it to me. I fell in love with it right away. I took home a sample in my gym bag. Unfortunately, on the way back home, it was a couple hours of driving, and somewhere in transit, the sample broke in my bag. And long story short, I had to throw that bag out because it reeked of Oud Satin Mood for months. I tried to wash it. That stuff would not let go. So that was kind of an unfortunate memory tied to the scent, but I can say the scent is lovely. It is this rich vanilla soaked oud and rose combo, very sweet, creamy, dark, but elegant, luxurious, and again, so powerful, maybe almost borderline too strong. But a fragrance I want to introduce to you that is very similar, again, similar scent profile, but not necessarily a clone, has its differences, has its other nuances. This is coming from Blend Oud, and this is called Oud Sapphire. Let me know if you guys have heard of this brand. You don't see much talk about them. Now, what I can say is this matches the performance of Oud Satin Mood. It's every bit as strong. It will be on your shirts for years to come. However, one thing I will say that's different about this compared to Oud Satin Mood, it's a little softer. It is still quite sweet, very heavy on the vanilla, lots of rose and oud, a little bit of violet at the top, which adds even more of a sweetness. And I'd say it might be a little bit more feminine leaning than Oud Satin Mood. Maybe even just more right down the middle, a little bit more unisex than Oud Satin Mood, which to me leans a little tiny bit towards the masculine side, but not by much. So if you're looking for a slightly more sensual version of Oud Satin Mood, this might be worth checking out, and it is a little bit cheaper. That is Blend Oud, Oud Sapphire. Let's talk about the house of Frederic Malle. I have honestly very little experience with the house, which is a shame. I've been meaning to get into them for years, and I procrastinated forever, but I do have a few samples that I have come back to from time to time. One of them is this. Promise. Very expensive fragrance from the house, but a beautiful scent perfumed by Dominique Ropion. Juicy, fruity apple, dark oud, definitely a lot of rose in the heart. A very elegant fragrance, well composed, and quite unique for a rose fragrance. But technically no oud in Promise. Oud Aquilaria from Oman Luxury, also perfumed by Dominique Ropion, pretty much carries over that scent profile from Promise with some slight tweaks. Definitely an addition of oud here as per the name. There's a warm, spicy, but also kind of fresh, crisp apple, almost a candied apple. And that mixing with the oud and the rose is opulent. It's almost mouth-watering in a way, but not in a way that makes me want to eat it. Great for a night out during the fall and winter, and definitely more affordable than Promise if you're looking for an alternative to that wonderful scent. And again, same perfumer, he just kind of airlifted his idea into a new bottle with different parameters and again, some other nuances. I think that's totally fair game, and I have respect for that. It's still the artist's work, not just some brand trying to copy someone else's work. This is Oud Aquilaria from Oman Luxury. Gonna be a link down below. All right, here's a fragrance that I do own. And again, maybe not the most hyped, but pretty well known. It is kind of polarizing. Some people don't like this, and many people haven't even tried it because they're perhaps a little bit afraid of it, but also it's discontinued and not that easy to find. But it's still one of my favorites, and I highly recommend trying it if you can. From Tom Ford, Oud Mineral. They really tried their best with this fragrance. They released it. It didn't do well. They pulled it. They brought it back. It didn't do well. They pulled it again. I don't know if we'll see it again. Smoky, dark, kind of seaweedy, salty marine fragrance. Woody, dry, but also wet at the same time. A very unique take on an aquatic. A very elegant and classy aquatic for the nighttime. Not really a summertime aquatic here, but again, not the most accessible and not that easy to find. So my alternative is from Kenzo, and it's Kenzo Homme EDP. Not exactly the same, but they do carry a similar vibe. That dark, smoky aquatic that just kind of feels more nighttime, less super high heat, a little bit more classy, but there is maybe a little bit more of an accessible element here. Almost a slight sweet fruitiness, not an ounce of sweetness in Oud Mineral, but in here you do get this fruit accord that is just kind of wrapped up in the waves. It's like you don't get it overtly. It's a sweet nuance that is overall a dark, kind of suede, smoky, woody aquatic. Great performance, well composed, and I'd say just about as unique as Oud Mineral. Easily one I would recommend that is a whole lot more accessible and easier to get your hands on. Kenzo Homme EDP. Now, I did misspeak a little bit at the beginning. I own this fragrance, which is fairly popular, from the house of Parfum de Malle. I've loved this fragrance. It's easily one of my favorites, in my top 3 from the house, period. And that is Herod. This was the first fragrance I ever tried from the house. It was my first love. I love this stuff. Perfect for the autumn. Warm, spicy, cinnamon, sweet vanilla, some dried fruits, a little bit of tobacco. Just cozy but elegant all at the same time. I love this scent personality. This was composed by the great and late Olivier Péchou, who passed away unfortunately way too early, but he left behind a beautiful legacy of fragrances for us to enjoy. This being one of them, and he did another one for Essential Parfum, which I don't have a bottle of, only have a sample that I've spent time with. You may have seen a short I did recently. If you didn't, you can check it out here. And I was talking about Divine Vanille, kind of like what Dominique Ropion did with The Promise going into Oud Aquilaria. Olivier airlifted his idea all on his own accord from Herod and put it into Divine Vanille, but it's not exactly the same. No tobacco presence in Divine Vanille, a little bit more on the smooth vanilla side of things with a little bit of warm spices, a touch of a dried fruity feel, but definitely heavier on the vanilla, definitely smoother, but the quality is just as good, and Essential Parfum is known to not be all that expensive. So I highly recommend checking them out for most of their offerings if you're looking for high quality niche perfumery that you don't have to cut your arm off for. But I do love Herod. I can easily endorse this one, and Divine Vanille is definitely worth checking out as an alternative. All right, the final fragrance, definitely the least hyped of all the popular fragrances I've talked about, and that is coming from Javoy. It's called Psychedelique. This is one of those fragrances that I have been drawn to for years. It has been intoxicating. I've tried to get bottles a few times over the years that just didn't pan out, but this is an incredible dark, ambery patchouli fragrance. Woody, a little bit sweet and warm, but very earthy and damp. Not a fragrance for everyone, but for some reason I find it intoxicating, similar to the way I find Gucci Guilty Absolute very intoxicating in a way that pushes me away and pulls me in all at the same time. However, Psychedelic is definitely a little rough around the edges and definitely not cheap. So I do recommend checking out a great alternative from Molinard, who's also known to be a high quality niche fragrance brand that's been around a long time. This is called Patchouli, and it does remind me a little bit of Psychedelic. It does bring an earthy, ambery, damp patchouli that is still not for everyone, but definitely more approachable than Psychedelic. A little bit of maybe vanilla in here that smooths it out, especially as it dries down. It gets a little bit sweeter. Just very, very elegant, but definitely patchouli forward. So patchouli lovers, especially if you've tried Psychedelic, you're not ready to commit to it for whatever reason, this might be one that's easier to get close to wrap your head around and just feel more confident wearing. So maybe give it a try. I'm going to link it down below. That is from Molinard. That is patchouli. Let me know if you've already tried it. Well, those are my alternatives. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, links to everything will be down in the description. And do let me know if you've tried any of my alternatives down in the comments. And thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.